Welcome to Biz Help for You with host Candy Messer. Entrepreneurs like to focus on the big picture, like profitability, success, and a smooth running organization. But there always seems to be those little things like taxes, employee compensation, laws, regulations, and more. Now you can get the answers you need in one place. Join us today as we break it all down for you. Now, here's your host, Candy Messer.
Hello and welcome to Biz Help for You with Candy Messer. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you found the information on last week's show, How to Fire Your Difficult Customers and Attract Ideal Clients, informative. If you are unable to join us and would like to listen to the show, links can be found on our YouTube and Facebook pages, as well as multiple favorite podcast platforms. If you would like to receive notifications on when our podcasts have been uploaded, please like and subscribe. If there are topics you'd find beneficial or questions you have, please feel free to reach out to me at media@abandp.com. Now let's learn a little bit about our guest today. Christopher Nauer is a native of Zurich, Switzerland, pursuing the American dream. He's been an associate pastor specializing in pastoral ministry and spiritual direction, and a certified business coach, helping business owners improve productivity, profits, and personal life. Christoph is a husband, a father, and an active member in a local interfaith coalition seeking to eliminate poverty. It's his belief that we're here on earth to serve while creating a satisfying source of income for self and family. In 2010, a friend invited him to a men's group. One of the members was a life coach. When Christoph heard that, a light went on. He asked George if he could train him. Funny you should ask, he said. I'm just transitioning from coaching people to training new coaches. So he became George's first student. Christoph went on to be certified by Brian Tracy as a time management master. He holds a BA in business and teaching credentials from Switzerland and a master's degree in theological studies. As the founder of Balance 6 Inc., Christoph helps business owners develop systems so they can improve productivity, profits, and personal life by balancing 6: money, health, relationships, time, self-improvement, and higher power of spirituality. His clients dramatically increase their productivity and time off with less stress. Christoph lives in the San Francisco Bay Area and has been happily married to Kate for over 30 years, and they have 3 adult children. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Kenya. It's great to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you. Now, before I get into the questions we have for today, I would love for you to tell us just a little bit more about yourself and how you got into what you're doing. I just read a little bit of your bio, but I'm sure there's more you could share.
Well, my wife and I, we were always working full-time, juggling that busy life and raising 3 kids. So it was just absolutely crazy. And we realized we were neglecting ourselves, each other, because the focus was on our careers, our jobs, and our kids. So one night we were like, okay, we can't go on like this anymore. So we scheduled a time away. We've got a babysitter. And we were pulling out of the driveway. The kids were standing on top of the driveway with the babysitter. And guess what? They were chanting, party, party. And so my wife and I look at each other and like, okay, here we are feeling guilty about leaving the kids with the babysitter, and they're chanting party. Of course, I understand that, especially looking back now, because the life with a babysitter is different than with the parents. And that's the way it should be, but it gave us a chance just to get away. And even if it was just for a couple of hours, to recharge and be with each other and kind of reconnect. So that we don't look at each other 10 years later and say, hey, who are you? Right. We met, And so that's I always tell this story because I know there's a lot of folks out there who are parents, in this society. Most parents are both working, trying to raise kids. And nowadays with, almost 2 years of COVID, working from home has become, pretty much the norm. Right. Now, how on earth can you work from home, have kids, raise kids, and still have a good personal relationship in their life with each other? Wow,
Right.
It is possible, though. And part of it is really where we just have to start being proactive instead of reactive.
Right. It's true because people now are home and it's not as like strong of a boundary between what you do at work and what you do at home, because now people's home offices are there and kids may be coming in and out sometimes because mom is home or dad is home and they don't understand the concept that, I'm supposed to be working right now. So I think it got a lot more blurred.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Mhm. So obviously that's one of the challenges that entrepreneurs are facing right now then too, is having this dichotomy of, I'm supposed to be in business, I'm a parent, I'm working from home, kind of the lines are blurred, but I'm sure you see other challenges that they face. So what do you think are the top challenges that entrepreneurs currently have in their lives?
Well, I think one is not having a plan or a schedule for their days and weeks.
Mhm.
Being reactive instead of proactive. And I addressed it in one of my podcasts. And that's really scary, because what happens then, you get up in the morning and you just start putting out fires. It's like a hamster getting on the wheel, and then at some point, it falls off exhausted. And the other thing too is, at the end of the day, you feel like, oh, did I really get anything done? And that's not a good feeling. It causes stress in our lives. It causes questioning ourselves, which is not a good thing. So at the end of the day, we really want to feel like, okay, yeah, I got some really critically good, important stuff done. What didn't get done, okay, that can wait. But to figure out what can wait and what cannot wait and what's critically important, what's not important, we really need a plan and a schedule. We need to learn to block time for certain things, so that when we get up in the morning, we kind of have a GPS for the day.
Right. I love calendars. I mean, everything that I need to do pretty much goes on a calendar. So for me, that's very helpful. But I think that's part of my personality too. So some people, it's just much easier than for others who just are kind of spontaneous or things like that. So how would you coach someone that maybe doesn't see it as an easy thing to do, to really just put things into a calendar?
Well, you probably know that as well as I do, that the real growth happens when we step outside our comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's uncomfortable right now for you to have a plan and have a schedule, then yes, it's hard, because you stay within your comfort zone. I don't want to do that. It's not me. It's not, and then we just start with baby steps. Let's try to put a couple things on your calendar, block time for that. And one of the things that I'm really a big advocate is self-care. What do you do for yourself? Because most of the time, nothing is there, or it's an afterthought. If there's time for myself, then I'll do that.
Mhm.
But
Yep.
in our society really, promotes and supports that message, except on the airplane.
Right.
That's when we get it
Exactly.
correctly. That's the only time we get it correctly. And
Mhm.
that's
Mhm. I mean, it's true. I think as entrepreneurs too, when we are running our companies, we are wearing so many hats, because we have to be the salesperson and the HR person and, like all of these different jobs that we have to do. So we feel there's so much that has to be done every day, that what is self-care, there's not time in the day for that, so I think it's understanding that it's okay to have a little bit of downtime and it's not a waste of time.
absolutely. Yes, that's exactly right. And I try to illustrate my points with a story. Okay.
Mhm.
The story speaks louder than words. And most people have never heard of me, but a lot of folks I think have heard of Carl Jung.
Mhm.
Now, the two of us who have one thing in common, we're both Swiss.
Right.
He had a house on the lake of Zurich. I grew up in the outskirts of Zurich, not at the lake. But that's where it about ends. But he got a call from a very influential person who told him that she would like to meet him on Wednesday afternoon at 2. And he said, I'm sorry, I'm not available. I already have an appointment. She was not used to not getting her way. And so she happened to be on the lake on Wednesday afternoon at 2, driving by his house. And she saw him sitting in the backyard, dangling his feet in the water. Now you can imagine how irate she was, so she got home and called him up and yelled at him and said, yeah, you didn't have an appointment. I saw you, blah, blah, blah. Very calmly said to her, no, I did not lie to you. I had the most important appointment of the week, an appointment with myself.
Right.
And, and I'd push that a little bit further and say, hey, call says once a week, I would like it to be a daily occurrence.
Well, let's just start once a week and then move up.
Yes, you're absolutely right. The baby steps, for instance,
Right.
if nothing is happening right now, if there's nothing on your calendar that says candy time, then, okay, let's do it maybe 1 hour a week, and then yes, increase it eventually. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, we've heard the term work-life balance, and some people say you can't even really have a work-life balance per se. You just have to focus on certain things and make sure one isn't too far out of whack. But why would you say, if we use that work-life balance, term, why is it so important?
My business name is Balance 6. And I strongly believe that when we balance those 6 that you mentioned at the beginning, and I'll repeat them again, time and money, health, relationship, self-improvement, higher power, or spirituality, that's when we are the best version of ourselves. Mm-hmm. Whether we are a parent, an entrepreneur, business owner, boss, employee, it doesn't matter, And to me, it is critically important. We all know that when a car runs out of gas, it stops. Mm-hmm. We also know if there's an oil leak and all of a sudden there is no more oil in the car, the engine blows. Those might be silly examples, but it's the same thing with us humans. We cannot go on and on and on without doing something for ourselves and recharge our own batteries. I quote 2 of my clients. One says, oh, it's so nice that you're giving me permission to put myself first. And the other one said, I'm getting really greedy about my time. And I love those quotes, and I'm sharing them everywhere I go now because they're really summarizing the stuff that we're talking about. You and I, we both, and everybody else, we all get 24 hours a day. Nobody gets more, nobody gets less. Warren Buffett says it perfectly. I can buy anything in the world I want except time. Mm-hmm. So how we allocate that time is critically important. And as we age, we don't want to have regrets. And one thing I know, I've never heard the regret, I wish I had worked more.
Right. Exactly.
So for me, I'm a huge proponent of work-life balance. I think it's absolutely critically important for us to be the best version of ourselves. And that's why I actually included, my business name kind of came out of that belief system and that conviction.
Right. Well, I think sometimes, like I was saying before, some people say like work-life balance isn't always that possible. And I think sometimes there are times where like business might take more of your time or personal might take more of your time. And it's still okay if periodically it's maybe not really balanced per se. You have to focus more time on something than other times maybe, but it's like not trying to burn ourselves out by just doing business all the time, right? To actually say, okay, I need to be able to say enough is enough for this week, let's have some family time or some personal time or whatever that is. And, make it a priority.
Yes. And I think to also recognize the difference between, an emergency and an everyday occurrence. So if it's an exception, that you put in a 12-hour day, if that's the exception, fine. But if it's the rule, that's not good. And 2, there's a myth that if you work 12 or 13 hours or more a day, you're more productive. No, it's not the case. Your productivity actually goes down once you get past the 8-hour days, and not taking a lunch break or breaks in between days, in between, doesn't make you more productive, actually less. So to set aside maybe 30 minutes to step away from your work, from your computer, go for a walk, have something to eat, and then come back. You're going to be more productive in the afternoon.
Right. So if someone's listening and they're saying, okay, well, I theoretically know I should be doing this. I need to have, that work-life balance. I need to not work those 12-hour days, but I just have so much that I need to do. What would you tell them about how to prioritize those tasks so that they can accomplish the most important things and not focus on some of the little things that maybe aren't as important?
Okay, I actually have two podcasts on that, that talk
Okay.
about prioritizing procrastination, the good procrastination versus the bad procrastination, and so forth. But the thing is, we start by making a list, the famous to-do list, write everything down that has to get done. And be sure that what's on the list is also something for yourself. And then before you go any further, you look at that list and first go, what can I eliminate? And self-care does not get eliminated. I'm sorry. Okay, that's a critically important task. And then secondly, what can I delegate? And once you've done that, your list should be shrunk down quite a bit.
Right.
And now you can
Go ahead.
And now you can look at the tasks that are left,
Mhm.
which are the critically important tasks, or as Brian Tracy calls them, the frogs. Eat that frog. What
Right.
frogs do I have to eat? I see at the list which of those are frogs and which are tadpoles. And what happens quite often, we go after the tadpoles because they're easier,
Right.
and the frogs don't get done. Now those frogs are actually getting bigger and bigger and fatter, and
Right.
starting to weigh us really down and sap energy and motivation out of us, But that's what I would recommend people do. Before you even start scheduling your stuff, look what can be eliminated and what can be delegated.
Right. So while you were talking then about delegating, so immediately what I was thinking of as a question is, obviously if someone is there to delegate to, that's great, right? You can delegate. But so if someone's in this situation right now where they're the entrepreneur, there's a solopreneur, they don't have a partner, they don't necessarily have somebody right now that they can delegate to, what would you tell them would be like the steps of how to find that right person to bring them on? How do they know how much time? Like if they're looking for someone and they're like, the person says, well, how many hours a week is it? Like what would you just tell them about how to figure that out so they can get the help they need to just move things off their plate?
So I'm a solopreneur myself, okay? And I thought, I do it all, I gotta do it all, and so I realized I gotta, really apply my own teaching. So I found a fantastic person to take care of my website. So he has a website maintenance plan. I'm like, oh my goodness, where have you been? Okay, so now that's all delegated. He takes care of anything that needs to be done. He'll take care of it. You're a bookkeeper, right? So a lot of people think, oh, I can do my own books. Bad idea, Well, I was one of them, okay, till I met the right person, and I have now an accountant. She takes care of all that for me. She also taught me that, being a solopreneur, being in a sole prop is not a good idea. It's not a good entity to have. I'm like, really? So she helped me to incorporate. So that's why I'm in a corporation right now. So you have to find the right people to delegate to. Absolutely. Right. And then the excuse, oh, I can't find anybody, or it's too time consuming to find somebody. Okay. Well, those are excuses.
Right.
And those can sometimes be fear of the unknown, fear of the new, fear of letting go. But the other thing too is ask. We are so afraid to ask for help because we feel we're making ourselves vulnerable and people think less of us. I'm sorry, that's silly. People love to help, So if I come to my network and say, hey, I really need help with somebody who can help me maintain my website. Well, people will, or anybody know somebody who can do my books? Boom, right there. Then there's the whole virtual assistants that are out there. There's so many out there that are available now. You could even outsource this out all the way to the Philippines if you like, for a fraction of the cost. Does it take time to find the right person? Absolutely. But it's the same idea of the chicken and the egg.
Right.
If I don't take the time to set this up, I will continue to waste my own time on those particular tasks. And by doing that, I cannot do the things that only I can do.
Right. So if somebody is hearing this though and saying, great, like I hear you saying, find a website person, find a bookkeeper, find a virtual assistant, and says, but they're so much more expensive than it would take me to do it. What would you say to them about that?
I'm using bookkeeping as an example. Okay. I don't know what your hourly rate is, but I just figure out, let's say it's $50 an hour, and you probably get somebody's books done in no time because you're an expert. If I try to do my own books, I have no clue. I probably make mistakes, and it probably takes me about 3 or 4 times as long as you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say my rate is that I charge my clients, $200, $300 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I'm losing money and time. Okay. And we just have to do the calculation correctly.
Right.
If I waste my time on doing a project that I'm not very good at, that means it takes me longer.
Mm-hmm.
And during the same time, I cannot serve my clients, or I cannot do the work that only I can do.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So it's, I know sometimes it's hard for people to make the equation and do the math correctly.
Right.
Once I bring it up and try to explain it to them that they're actually losing both time and money,
right.
Then they start realizing, oh, that's what you're talking about. But again, it's a mindset. We have to really shift the way we look at things. What you said, I've heard this so many times. Oh, but I can do it better. Or I can do it faster. Or
Right.
Really? Is that your expertise? Are you a trained bookkeeper? Is that your profession? No, I am whatever. Okay.
That's so true. So now that we're talking about, all of these different things that, are going to make it easier for us to take some things off our plate, right? And focus a little bit more on ourselves as well. What would you say about setting goals for yourself, both maybe in business and personally, so that we can achieve those kind of things that we're setting out to do and accomplishing them, not just saying I'm going to, work less, right? What would you say?
Well, thank you for bringing that up. This is a time of year when we should start looking at the whole idea of goal setting, et cetera, et cetera. And I do have another episode on my podcast exactly on that particular topic. And one of the things that sets me apart from most other business coaches is that I focus on those 6 categories, to set goals in those 6 categories. The whole idea of SMART goals, et cetera. I think you're pretty much familiar with that. I do believe that's critically important for us to have written goals. If they're not in writing, they don't exist. And the sad story is only about 3% of people have written goals for their lives and their businesses. Mm-hmm. If they're not written down and if they're not SMART goals, they're very unlikely to happen.
Right.
I always use this story. Okay, would anybody get on a ship if the captain had no idea where he was going and would just let the wind decide where they would end up? But we do that with our lives and our businesses. Mm-hmm. Plus, it helps us too, is all successful business owners have goals. They have them in writing, and they actually interact with their goals regularly. Some do it weekly, some do it monthly, some do it quarterly. But it helps to look at them on a regular basis to see how am I doing. Am I on track? Do I need to adjust my sails to the wind? Instead of complaining about which way the wind is blowing.
Right.
So, yes, this is a very important, this is really critically important, I think, especially now during the end of the year, to look at next year. Where do you want to be at the end of 2022?
Yeah, that's such good advice. And we all know we should be doing it. And sometimes, again, people say like, well, I just set a general goal. No, we don't want just a general goal. I don't want to just say I want to lose weight or I want to take a vacation sometime. We want to say I want to go on vacation next year, or I want to lose 10 pounds or whatever, right? We want to be specific.
Right. Interesting enough that, the whole weight loss is one of the examples I use in my podcast on goal setting, because I say you can say I want to lose weight. You can go to sleep tonight and wake up tomorrow morning and you've actually lost an ounce or two.
Right.
But if you wanted a smart goal too, you could say something like, okay, I want to lose 20 pounds by March 31st of 2022. So that I can fit into my nice suit for my daughter's wedding, or a woman, so I can fit in a smoking hot red dress for my daughter's wedding, or something like that. All of a sudden, it takes on a new reality. Not only do you know exactly how much and by when, but also the why.
Well, and in terms of like what we do with clients too, if you're going to be setting financial goals and you say, I want this much revenue, in 2022, then you can set up goals like you need to have so much income per month or per quarter, per week, per day, whatever that is, so that you can kind of back it out. You're not waiting until December 31st to see, did I hit my goal or not? You could see if you're on track, periodically check where you are.
Yes. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly right. To see how am I doing? There's months when I'm better, and there's months when I'm not so good. Is there something that I could do to improve? Make some changes. Absolutely, yes.
Right. So if you're going to help someone figure out, okay, I need to make sure that I'm being, productive and using my time effectively, how would you tell them to plan their day?
So there's different ways of doing that. One of the things that most of my clients are working on is setting aside a particular time each week to plan the next week. For instance, Friday, evening or afternoon before you hopefully close the office door for the weekend, you set aside maybe 30 minutes. And then you look at next week. There might be already stuff on there that's already scheduled. That's great. And then we go back to what was talking about before, create the famous to-do list. Then look at prioritizing. Okay. Once it's shrunk down, the stuff that can be delegated and eliminated has been removed, then you prioritize which are the critically important tasks that have to get done next week and what can wait. Then you look at these different tasks that you have to do and allocate a time to it. Murphy's Law says it always takes longer.
Right.
And if it's a big daunting task and it's kind of hard for me to work at the same stuff for 3 or 4 hours, well, then you chop it up, and you're an elephant, one bite at a time. So maybe you work on this project X, an hour a day or 2 hours a day or something like that, and put that on your calendar. So once, and then once you have it on your calendar, now you need to follow your calendar. Right. So don't give it away to somebody else. Clients always think that, we need to be at the beck and call anytime they call. No, that's not true. So there's a system to, if clients need to reach you, how do you want to be contacted? Do you want to do it via email? Do you set appointments with them, etc.? And sometimes clients have to learn, they have to retrain their clients because they let them get away with calling them at any time they wanted to.
Right. Yeah, that's actually something I had learned many, many, many years ago. I'd actually had a business coach at that point too. And she had said, well, what do you do like when a prospect calls, and it was asking me the prospect process. And she was saying, no, you don't have to take that call the minute that they call in, so if you're doing something, don't feel obligated to drop what you're doing and take that call in. So now we actually have a process, and of course, I have employees who can help with this whole process too. But if someone just calls and asks to speak with me, they don't get me right away because we have a questionnaire that we need done or different things. But I think that was actually something that was helpful for me, because I was thinking like, oh, I have to take that call, when they call in. And it was really nice to know, like, yeah, you don't have to. And it doesn't mean that they are not going to like say, okay, yeah, sure, I could set a time to talk with her, tomorrow at 10 o'clock or something. It's not going to be as much of an issue as we think it's going to be.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And I think that's one of the things I always encourage my clients to have a scheduling program, whether it's Calendly or, there's so many different ones out there. But yes, so that you can tell them, hey, pick a time on my calendar. And so we can further discuss what it is that you're looking for. Or you have an intake form, if you, before I even talk to you, I want to know a few things. And here are the questions that I would like you to answer. Now, if people are too lazy to answer those questions, then that they're probably not good.
Probably not ideal. Right. Right.
And what you said is so dead on. It's your business, so you decide how you want all this stuff and the interaction to be handled. But so many people feel like they have to be at the beck and call of their clients.
Right.
And that causes chaos.
Well, I was going to say that comes back down to that work-life balance too, and having boundaries. Like I actually don't give out my cell phone number because I say, I have an office technically. I mean, now with COVID, of course, we're remote, but I have a staff member who can answer the calls and I can take the calls, I can return the calls, but I don't want people reaching out to me outside of specific hours because I am trying to work on my own boundaries as well. And to say, when the work is done, the work is done. And some people don't necessarily like that. They want to be able to reach you, but that's just how I operate. And so that's just one of the things I've done for myself. And most people understand that that's, how I operate. But, and again, it comes back to maybe if someone doesn't like that they can't reach me all hours of the day or night, then maybe they're not the right person for me. And they might have someone else out there that operates that way and they're a better fit. So I think we just have to understand that it's okay. We're not going to please everybody. And, there's the right ones out there for us and not to stress about it.
Yes, I couldn't agree more with you. I would say congratulations on establishing that. And
I've had to learn.
Yes,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, it's critically important. I mean, there's no reason why you'd have to be at the beck and call 24/7. And if a client doesn't like that, then you're absolutely right. It's not a good fit for you.
Yeah. Right. So you were talking too about scheduling and different things too. And I do put things on my calendar for, certain blocks that I'm doing certain things too. So I'm familiar with time blocking, but I would love for you to talk about time blocking and how that might help entrepreneurs be a little bit more, efficient with their day as well.
Okay. So one of the things that Brian Tracy teaches is the 90-15-90. What that means is you block time for 90 minutes. And if that's too long, you can do an hour. But during that time, you work on a project without any interruptions. That means your phone is off, your email is off, any kind of alerts, Facebook or whatever it is, completely off. Your desk is empty. The only thing that's on the desk is for the task that you're working on. And then after an hour or 90 minutes, you take a 15-minute break, and then you do it again. So if you just use this 90-15-90 once a week, your productivity will skyrocket. Now, if you do something similar on a daily basis, you'll be blown away. Okay. And since you're familiar with time blocking, you brought it up. Time blocking, when you check email, return email, when you return phone calls, when so it's for all these different things. And what happens quite often, people, they get up and then they check email first. And then whatever emails they get, they're going to respond to, and then use that to get them set up and get going in the morning. I highly recommend that you develop a morning routine that sets you up, or the listeners, I mean, up for success, so that they can actually perform at a 10 out of 10. Develop a morning routine. So mine is a half hour of meditation, a half hour on my stationary bike, shower, and then I'm ready. And that's my time, and nobody has any right to interfere with that. It's just not, sorry, it's me. When I do that, I am much better. I can actually perform at a 10. Do I feel like blowing it off and turn around, sleep a little bit long? Absolutely. And at times I do. Interestingly enough, I'm more sluggish when I do that. So my body has actually pretty much adjusted to this idea. Instead of my body, I had to teach my body what I'd like to do. And then my body respond and say, yeah, sounds good. So 10:30, my body says, time, lights out. Because I even if I'm reading, I'm like, I read the same page 3 times. I'm like, okay, I guess
That's the sign.
But then 6 o'clock rolls around, boom. And so interesting. I don't know why, but that's something that I highly encourage to my clients. And they say, oh, I'm so tired in the morning. I'm so exhausted. So, well, what time are you going to bed? Oh, 12 or 1. Is that, Well, how much sleep do you need? So we talk about all that, which is, in a way, you think it's silly, but we all need sleep.
Right.
And if we give a body what it needs, then the body can perform better. If the body is at its best, we are our best.
That's so true.
You know,
When it comes to what we've talked about before about planning our day and all of the tasks that we have to accomplish and things like that, inevitably someone's going to procrastinate. So can you talk about that and what they can do to kind of overcome that procrastination?
there's two types of procrastination, the good one and the bad one. Okay. We'll probably talk about the bad one, but just to mention the good one real quick. The good one is you decide on the things to procrastinate on. Okay. So that goes back into the whole idea of the prioritizing process. Looking at the stuff that's on your to-do list and then decide, can I procrastinate on this or this or this? And if I do, what's the consequence? And if the consequence is minimal or non-existent, then that's an indicator that, yes, this can be removed. The procrastination which this is called the proactive procrastination, okay? The one that you probably talk about is the kind that people do not eating the frog.
Right.
Okay? And that's just part of the human nature. When we have a task that's not comfortable or it's big or challenging or whatever, we tend to put it off. And well, bottom line is we have to develop self-discipline and jump in. So if we feel overwhelmed by this task, can we chop it up? Like I said earlier, is it less daunting or scary if we just do it for a half hour or an hour a day?
Right.
And then we still get it done. Ultimately, we have to ask ourselves, is this task that we procrastinate on really, truly important or not? To give an example, I have a client who she says she wants to do yoga. Been working on this now for several months. It just hasn't happened. So I asked her again the last session, do you really want this? Is it really important to you? She said, yes, it really, really is. So, okay. So what do you think happened? Why aren't you doing it? And she wasn't sure, so now we have to look at what causes us to procrastinate. So when we have a task in our schedule that says, for instance, for her, yoga, and she says, and doesn't do it. Why is that? And most of the time we don't even think about it, we just don't do it.
Mhm.
So once we stop and really ask ourselves, why is it that I'm actually not doing what I have on my schedule? That means we have to stop and we have to think. Then we can then actually start doing something about it. The other thing too is we all do procrastinate, and sometimes we just don't do it. That's the human nature. In order for you to make sure that the thing doesn't completely fall through the cracks, just move it to a different time. So when something comes on my schedule, I look at it, oh no, I don't really want to do that. So I always say I'm really good at excuses. I have a master's degree in excusitis. But then instead of just blowing it off, okay, let's see, can I do this tomorrow? Can I do this? Do I have an hour to take care of it, at this another time?
Well, I've heard, I think it was like a friend or someone that was kind of talking about this topic once, and she was saying that, everyone has a certain time of day where their body kind of is like slower to operate. And there's a time of day where you're just like really on fire, and just being able to figure out during that time where you're really on fire, what are those tasks that really just take more of your capacity, and putting them there. And when you're kind of in that lull, those are the things that maybe are a little more mindless, quote unquote mindless, you still have to. So I guess, can you just mention maybe how people can figure out how they would determine when they should be putting certain tasks? So they already know they have all these frogs they have to eat. And we've already talked about kind of prioritizing in terms of importance, but how would you help them understand where in their day maybe to put those?
I think there's an excellent point that you're making. It's absolutely true. And each person is different. And yes, they need to know when they're at our best, when they're really top producers, and if they don't know that, then they should work on trying to figure that out, because I can't tell you, oh, you got to do this first thing in the morning. Well, if you're not a morning person, okay. I mean, I had a client, she was like, I think it was midnight to 2 in the morning when she was just at her, best,
Wow.
She was flowing, and I mean, she was just killing it at that time. And she said, okay, but then I can't get up and I can't have morning appointments. I said, that's perfectly fine. Then you're just not available in the morning. And she was like, huh? I said, yeah, you decide what time in the morning you have a first appointment, or if you don't have any morning appointments, totally up to you. But so she had to do all those tasks where she really needed to be 120% during that time frame. So she knew that. But others, like you said, may not know that. And I think that's important for them to learn.
Right.
For me personally, mornings are better. I get a little bit more sluggish in the afternoon, or that's why I usually have a cup of coffee around 3 o'clock. But yes, knowing that about yourself, you're absolutely right, is critically important. And if you don't know yet, learn it, try to figure it out, and one thing they can do is schedule these challenging tasks, one in the morning, first thing in the morning, then late morning, early afternoon, late afternoon. And then just get an idea of, when was it easiest to work on this particular task? And then at some point they will know, oh yeah, first thing in the morning was best. Okay, good.
Right. Perfect. Well, this has been helpful information. I'm sure there's more we could talk about, but I know we're running out of time. So I just wanted to ask if you have an offer that you would like to share with the listeners.
Yes, I have great offers on my website, balance6.biz. One is a free report, basically talks about 5 ways you can put your business growth on autopilot. Work less, make more money. That's that's available for free. Another freebie is my vodcast. You can access again from the website. Great episodes on goal setting, on prioritizing, procrastination, overcoming procrastination. One that's really one that my webmaster actually really likes a lot is how to plan your ultimate day, the best day ever. All there on the website. You can also buy my Amazon best-selling book, From No Time to Free Time, 6 Steps to Work-Life Balance for Business Owners. It's available on Amazon as an ebook. The print book is probably coming out in January.
Okay, perfect.
All that
do you
is
want to
on our
give?
website.
I was going to say, do you want to give that website address again, just so everyone can hear that?
Sure, absolutely. Balance6.biz. So the word balance,
Perfect.
the number 6.biz.
Perfect. Thank you, Christoph. I would really appreciate you being a guest on my show today.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it. It was fun talking with you, Candy.
It was a lot of fun. I do want to thank the listeners for tuning in today as well. I hope you found this topic interesting and that it answered some of your questions about time management, work-life balance, and productivity. If you have any additional questions or comments, be sure to reach out to Christoph at his website, or you can send us a message at media@abandp.com. And would you please share our show information with those you know? I'd greatly appreciate your support. I hope you can join us for next week's topic, revenue growth through marginal gains on the right focal areas. And please remember, you can connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And my website is abandp.com. And you can find the podcast posted on multiple favorite podcast platforms, including Google, TuneIn, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Until next time, have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next Tuesday. Have a terrific week.